children and adolescents living with HIV, survivors of sexual violence against children, children of HIV-positive caregivers, and there is a note here. We are specifically looking for children whose caregivers have low viral suppression or other risk factors, such as substance abuse, such as depression, things that might affect their children, okay? Children less than 2 who are lost to follow-up in the PMTCT program, children of female sex workers, teen moms, and children with disabilities. So now we've arrived at our poll question 2. Maybe I'll ask my colleague to read it as she did before.
Okay, so colleague being me.
That's you.
OVC can be identified at, so orphans and vulnerable children can be identified at A, the facility level, B, the community level, C, both facility and community, D, it's not my job to identify OVCs. What do we think? Orphans and vulnerable children can be identified A, at the facility, B, at the community level, C, both facility and community, D, it's not my job to identify OVCs. So we have a number of people voting. I hope our new entrants, Mbala, Kasama, Mansa, St. Paul's, and Samfia, you are able to vote as well. I can see in some of the spokes, there is no movement and sign of voting. We really need these votes so that we know where our the important points we need to touch on. Please go ahead and vote. St. Francis, have you voted? Give us a wave. Kabwe Central, have we voted? Okay. Okay, so we have 8 more seconds to allow for voting. So far we have 73 spokes voting. We need more votes. Where can we identify these orphans and vulnerable children? Is it in the facility? Is it in the community? Is it both the facility and community? Or this is not our job to identify these OVCs? This is very interesting. Please go ahead and vote. We are ending the poll now. So I will share these results with our panel so that they see how good they are at setting questions. Yes. So people feel that it's both, actually 100% of the people feel it's both facility and the community. I thought it was D, actually, before I came to learn about OVCs, so I would have been the odd one out. I'm a terrible person. Anyway. Mr. Sitwala. Mr. Sitwala Mungunda. Are you able to?
Okay. Okay, yes, thank you. Yes, my name is Sitwala Mungunda. I'm advisor on orphans and vulnerable children in the health office at USAID. So I'll have 2 slides to present to build on what my colleague Lorraine presented. We can go ahead. Yes. So Lorraine already explained the subpopulations that we focus on. That is children living with HIV, survivors of sexual violence, children of people living with HIV, children younger than 2 years who are lost to follow up for PMTCT, children of female sex workers, teen moms who are children, raising children, and children with disabilities. Now, on the ground, in terms of how do we define vulnerability for each of these categories? So at USAID, we follow certain domains which are indicated on the slide there. We want these vulnerable children to be healthy. We want them to be safe. We want them to be schooled. We want them to be stable. So in identifying who is vulnerable, we look at parameters of vulnerability within these domains. So for example, under healthy, an non-HIV status is a parameter of vulnerability because our strategy of epidemic control, 95, 95, 95, requires that we need to know the HIV status of everybody so that those that are positive can be put to treatment. So if a child is HIV status is unknown and they were HIV exposed, that makes them vulnerable. Also, if they are HIV positive and they are on ART, if their retention and adherence is poor, that's a parameter of vulnerability. If they're HIV negative, like the adolescents, they are at risk of HIV infection. If they are, say, they are under 2 years old, they are malnourished, that's vulnerability. Teen moms, that's a vulnerability. So what we want is to turn all these negative parameters into positives. So our interventions try to change these negatives into positives. So when we change them into positives, that now meets what Lorraine was talking about, the graduation benchmarks. It means now the child is ready to graduate. If those negatives which we identified for that child have been addressed now, they have been turned into positives. So I'll proceed. Under safe, we want the children, if the children are survivors of sexual violence, it means that they are vulnerable. If they are at high risk of physical, emotional, and psychological injury due to exposure to violence in the home, that's a vulnerability. If their legal status is undocumented, like they have no birth certificate, that's a parameter of vulnerability. So we want children to be safe from sexual violence, to be the risk for physical, emotional, psychological injury to be reduced. So if that is done, then the children can graduate. We want them to be schooled, meaning if a child has poor school attendance, has a slow progression in school, that's an indicator of vulnerability. We want them to progress in school. We want them to attend school. Stable. We want them to live in a stable home environment where caregivers are able to meet important family needs, food, health, and so on. We want the caregivers and the children to be able to access the basic support and also to access shelter. So if a child in those priority subpopulations is lacking these things, that's a parameter of vulnerability, which you can use to identify them on the ground. We also focus on the caregivers. So the caregiver has risk factors, like if they are living with HIV/AIDS, that's another parameter of vulnerability for the child. If the caregiver is HIV positive, has a low viral suppression, or is a female sex worker, that's another, it shows us that that child needs help. So these are the domains and the parameters we use to assess which child which children are vulnerable at the community level or in the household. And these are used by implementing partners. So we go on now. Who exactly identifies these vulnerable children? There are a number of them, a number of stakeholders that have interest in the welfare of children. One, we have implementing partners like ZAMFARM. We have two ZAMFARM. There's a ZAMFARM implemented by DAP. There's a ZAMFARM implemented by Expanded Church Response. We also have other partners like ZCHP and ZCCP. These have programs which address subpopulations of vulnerable children. And they use the PEPFAR subpopulation criteria to identify them. They have enrollment assessment forms. They have HIV risk screening tools which they use. We also have community structures like community welfare assistance committees under the Ministry of Community Development. We have the neighborhood health committees under the Ministry of Health. We have community-based organizations and faith-based organizations. These work with all these work with the implementing partners. They also work with the government. And they use organization-specific eligibility criteria to identify vulnerable children so that services can be provided to them. At district level, we have structures there. We have the district welfare assistance committees made up of government departments and other NGOs and at district level. We have the district child protection committees. So these committees, these are multi-sectoral entities. They use the government vulnerability assessment criteria. We have health facilities. So health facilities have specific interventions they're providing there, like voluntary medical male circumcision, prevention of mother-to-child transmission, HIV testing, post-violence care, routine clinical care. So there are Ministry of Health criteria there which can also identify vulnerability. We have also community members, family members, neighbors, community volunteers. These will use social criteria that, okay, we are all suffering, our children have problems, but that family has a specific problem, or that child has problems that needs help. So this is how the child is, vulnerable children are identified. And in FY21, we plan to have the implementing partners to have staff at facility level who work closely with the health personnel to assess all females with children in adult HIV care to confirm index testing of biological children for potential provision of home support and follow-up. So this is how, in practice, vulnerable children are identified. Thank you. So, Madam Chair.
So thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mungunda. And thank you for calling me a chair. I'm simply a facilitator. So do you want to read the third poll question? Then I'll go over it.
I read through them, eh?
Yes, please.
Okay. The following are OVC services. A, supportive referrals to post-violence care. B, support to access ART and age-appropriate counseling and HIV disclosure support. C, assistance for school enrollment, that is for dropouts or teen mothers. And D, all of the above.
Okay.
So which ones are OVC services?
Okay. So we hope the network can see this. Please let's go ahead and vote. We expect 116 votes minimum. Which of the following are OVC services? Supportive referrals to post-violence care. B, access to ART and age-appropriate counseling and HIV disclosure support. C, assistance for school enrollment, that is for dropouts or teen mothers. D, all the above. Please, let's go ahead. We still have a few more seconds to vote. The following are orphan and vulnerable children services. Supportive referrals to post-violence care, that's A. B, support to access ART and age-appropriate counseling and HIV disclosure support. C, assistance for school re-enrollment, that is for people that have dropped out or teenagers who are mothers. D, all the above. So we have some interesting votes. You have a few more seconds to vote, 8 to be precise. Okay. We are going to end the polling. Thank you all for all that polled. Okay, so Mr. Sitwala, this is what people think are OVC services. We'll give the panel a chance to explain these at the end of the session. So this is the voting pattern of over 91 people that voted. Thank you so much to all that voted.
Thank you, Chair. So we can move to the next slide. So what services are available to OVC? So OVC programs are platforms for prevention of HIV and for support of the clinical cascade. They focus on strengthening referrals and linkages, on case management, and on reducing stigma and discrimination and creating an enabling environment for children and their families to access services. As we mentioned before, these are family-centered interventions, and these services are provided by multidisciplinary teams at both the facility and the community level. This next slide is a slide that was created by my brilliant colleague from CDC, Dr. Meg Ito, and I really love this slide. She knows I love this slide because it's showing that she looked at data. She looked at our routine data that we collect from our treatment program and our OVC program. And found that in sites where we had an OVC program that was supporting children living with HIV, the viral load coverage and viral load suppression was actually higher. And so this is just showing that OVC support can improve client outcomes. But you don't have to take it from me. I'm actually going to pass over now to 3 of my colleagues who knew a lot more about OVC services in Zambia to talk through what each of these, what their programs look like and the services that they offer. So I'd like to introduce now my colleague Mwangala Chibbabbuka from Expanded Church Response.
Hi, Mwangala.
Hello, thank you for having me on the panel. I'm Mwangala Chibbabbuka. I work with Expanded Church Response. I'm the Chief of Party for the Copperbelt Lusaka Zambia Family Activity, a project that is being implemented in 10 districts in Lusaka, Copperbelt, and Northwestern. We have 70,433 OVC, of which 5,995 are living with HIV. Our case management approach involves needs assessment of the OVC household, in order for us to provide individualized, tailor-made services to these households through household visits, as well as through referrals. We have trained community volunteers that have been trained in collaboration with Ministry of Health in curriculum such as lay counseling, as well as comprehensive childhood and adolescent health care. Over 1,200 of our community volunteers are attached to health facilities to help the OVCs with health services, such as facility navigation when they are referred for services at the facility, as well as tracing those that are lost to follow up in the communities. We are also providing adherence counseling, as well as supporting the households with disclosure support. We're also referring from the community to the facility for HIV-related testing, as well as just routine healthcare services. During this COVID pandemic, our community volunteers have been providing a virtual case management for households that have access to phones, as well as those that don't have access to phones. They've still continued visiting them, of course, observing all the social distancing guidelines, as well as wearing face masks. So during this pandemic, they've been doing ART home delivery, as well as supporting the children, as well as adolescents that are living with HIV to be enrolled on MMD. We also have support groups for adolescents that are living with HIV. So these are peer groups that support each other with adherence, as well as just to share their life experiences, and just to support each other being adolescents, so that they don't feel left out or feel like they're alone, but get to see that there are also other children who are in the same boats like them. We are also supporting the household with treatment literacy, as well as viral load literacy. For children that are under 5, just like Sitwala had mentioned, working with the facilities, of course, we're providing nutrition assessment. That's the middle upper arm circumference, using the middle upper arm circumference, as well as providing cooking demonstration, food preservation, and all that, just to support the young ones to be able to grow well. We also provide hygiene counseling, as well as WASH messaging. And during this period, we've been raising awareness, risk awareness. So we also have HIV prevention training for our youths, as well as for the caregivers, including sexual reproductive health trainings, as well as messaging. So those are the services that we are providing under the health domain. So under the safe domain, we have child protection services, and the services involve screening for GBV, in the OVC household. And especially during this time of COVID, we've seen an increase. We've had a number of cases that have been reported of child sexual abuse in our OVC household. And some of the abuse has been caused by the parents, the fathers to those children. And working with community development, we've had children removed from those households and taken for shelter, as well as we've been able to help these children access health services such as screening for HIV, and then for them to also access PrEP and PEP. We are also providing trauma counseling to these children that are abused. or children that have been under traumatic experiences, including basic psychosocial counseling. Most of these overseas have lost their parents due to HIV. And so because of that, their self-esteem is quite low, and they have a lot of traumatic experiences because they are moved from one household to the other. And as they move from one household to the other, they also get to experience some abuse, either physical or sexual. So psychosocial counseling as well as trauma counseling has really been helpful to these children. So like I said, once we identify these cases, we are able to refer them to the facility for clinical support, as well as taking the case to the police, that's the victim support, as well as for legal support through the paralegals. We also have safe-space interventions for children through Kids Club as well as Youth Club. So these safe spaces act as places where children can come in, be able to receive psychosocial support, be able to play games, and also be able to do some schoolwork. We work with community organizations in the community. These are community-based organizations as well as faith-based organizations. We give them grants for them to be able to provide direct services to the overseas household. And so we support them with developing a child safeguarding policies so that as they are working in this space, the children are protected. We can move to the next slide. So under the school domain, this is where we provide education services. The services include school fees. And for the school fees, we don't pay school fees for all the 70,000 children. So we are able to identify those children that really need support in terms of school fees, and mainly it's those in secondary school, those coming from households that are really vulnerable and the caregivers can't afford to pay for school fees. For those that are still in primary school, we support them with school uniforms, school books, as well as other school materials. Then for the teens, those that have had children and they had to stop school at some point, we support them to get back to school. Also for children that are behind, those that are lagging in class, maybe because they've got a caregiver that is sick, we provide community-based tutoring sessions. So this is where we work with the Ministry of Education to have the teachers come in the community and be able to offer some extra lesson to these children that are lagging behind. We also monitor the children, we monitor progression as well as track their performance. Then for the children that are below 8 years old, we also support the parents with parenting skills for them to be able to provide early childhood development for children that are below 8. And yeah, so in terms of the stable domain, this is where we provide the economic strengthening services. And one of the services that we provide is community savings group. These are popular in the community. Others call them village banks. So for us as Zamfam, we believe these are very important in terms of sustainability, so that even as the project comes to an end, the household are able to continue paying the school fees, they're able to continue providing the services, the basic services to the overseas household. So apart from the savings group, we empower the same savings group with financial literacy training as well as business skills training. We've also been working with the Ministry of Commerce to be able to link this savings group in order for them to form cooperatives so that they're able to access other services, including from Ministry of Agriculture, as well as community development. We are also linking our offices as well as referring them for social services such as social cash transfer, that's working with Ministry of Community Development. For the youths that are above 18 years old, those that have finished school and are coming from these overseas households, we support them with vocational skills training. So we pay for their tuition fees for them to be able to attend a TVETA accredited institution, for them to be able to gain a skill and be able to find employment, or use that skill for them to start an IGA. So these are the main services that we are providing under the Copper Belt Lusaka Zambia Family Activity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mwangala. I guess by IGA, she means an infant generating activity. Those are some very beautiful pictures about what's happening at the grassroots to the people that are really deprived. This looks like really something that's very fruitful. So we'll let Bernard pick up at this point. Bernard, are you with us? Bernard Kasawa, is he there? So we can't see Mr. Kasawa. Lorraine, are you able to pick up this slide?
I wonder, Sitwala, do you want to present for Bernard?
Mr. Mungandu?
Oh, I can also do it. So, so the second partner that we wanted to highlight is ZamFam South Central. So they are implemented across 14 districts in southern and central provinces, and they work with a number of government ministries and community structures, including the CWACs. At the moment, they're supporting about 123,000 OVC, but they're looking to graduate a lot of those families as they are will be closing their program come November after 5 years of implementation. All of the families that are enrolled are organized into village action groups, or VAGs. And this is a platform for mutual support as well as external trainings. The program at the moment has about 11,190 children living with HIV, and all of them are on ART, and that's really exciting. I think that shows the power of the OVC program, because the cool thing about the OVC programming is this piece around case management, where we're taking the interventions that are done at the clinic, at the facility, and we're bringing them down to the household level. So at the household, they're going in, they're checking on the children, they're asking if they have any questions about their treatment, nutrition, positive living, etc. And this is, the results are really there, that every single one of those kids are on ART. And they also work with 925 community health workers across several hundred facilities. Next page, or next slide. So this slide just talks about the services that they provide. So it's a really cool program because they work with the CHWs. They support the CHWs to go and, like I said, cascade those interventions that are done at the facility level into the household. So they screen, they provide HIV testing of children and their caregivers. They have this really cool concept called trios, where they have a children who is living with HIV or an adolescent, and they create a bit of a buddy system where it's the child, their caregiver, as well as a third adult that they trust. And it's that trio that provides that support for that child and checks in on them and making sure that they have the support that they need. And they also mobilize them and connect them to teen clubs. The teen club is their adherence support groups that they run. They don't call them adherence support groups, they call them teen clubs. And they provide the adherence, psychosocial, and life skill support that these children need. And then they also, the CHW is responsible for, each have a number of OVC that are assigned to them. So these CHW know these children, they know their families. And it's with that, those relationships that they build that is really where the quality of the programming comes in, because they are able to pick up on things like child protection issues. They're able to pick up like things like the child is losing weight. Hey, what's going on? Let's check out their viral load, etc. And to connect them to services that they need, and then follow up that child along a care plan that they develop for that family. I believe that's the last slide. So now I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Johan Mtonga from ZCCP Kwatu.
Thanks so much, Lorraine, and good afternoon, everyone. So yes, my name is Johans Mtonga from Zambia Center for Communication Programs, also known as Kwatu. We are implementing the USAID Stop GBV project, where we are also targeting boys between the ages of 9 to 14. So this is a coaching boys into men, which is one of the focus areas in terms of preventing sexual gender-based violence. So to start with, my colleagues also shared in terms of the definition of OVC and who the orphan and vulnerable child is. I must mention to say boys too can become vulnerable, and they also can become orphans. They can also be children that are living with HIV and AIDS, but also they can be children for caregivers who are living positive of HIV and AIDS. So now why coaching boys into men is because many times most of the interventions are designed for children and adolescent girls. So for example, under the USAID programs, there is a DREAMS component or a DREAMS initiative, which is supporting prevention and response mechanisms for adolescent girls and young women. And DREAMS stands for Determined, Resilient, Empowered, AIDS-Free, Mentored, and Safe for the girls. So because this is designed mainly for the girls, the Coaching Boys into Men brings in a support mechanism for the boys who are mainly coached by skilled coaches, and not only to coach them in terms of sport, but also looking at the whole spectrum of life, including primary prevention of HIV and the AIDS. So why coaching boys into men is because the younger youths or the younger boys have a lot of trust for the coaches, just like they have a lot of trust for the teachers. What they are taught to do is what most likely they are going to practice. I have a young child, for example, who very often when we're at home and I want to present something else, he will always say, but teacher said. In other words, they pay much attention to what their mentors or teachers tell them. So this particular platform, which the coaches use to also mentor the boys, focuses on primary prevention of sexual gender-based violence as well as HIV and AIDS, and provides information to these particular boys in terms of the prevention or avoiding early sex debut and the challenges that come with early sex debut in terms of the risk to HIV and AIDS. But also it provides an opportunity to make referrals for HIV testing services, but also access for post-GBV care, for example, at the one-stop centers that are stationed at some of the selected health facilities. Some of the people could be present here. But at the same time, because they're part of the community, meaning that they are able also to reach out, for example, through the hotline, if they're able to observe any abuse, especially for the vulnerable women and girls. But at the same time, using the same Coaching Boys into Men platform, this helps them, for example, to increase in terms of their understanding of healthy and unhealthy relationships. What kinds of healthy relationships do they have with their families, with their friends? But also in terms of respect for women and girls, because they are being coached into responsible adults who are going to be providing equality as well as the support in terms of sharing power when they begin to grow into adults as well as the married men. And looking at our country being patriarchal in nature, meaning that once the social norms at this particular age are changed to begin to think positively about women, it means as they graduate into adulthood, they'll be able to share power with their sisters, with their mothers, as well as much more with their spouses. So it's a platform that raises awareness about the prevention of gender-based violence, particularly sexual gender-based violence, which is a high risk to HIV and AIDS, as well as HIV/AIDS itself. And now during this particular time of COVID-19, like my colleague also mentioned, this is the time where we also share about COVID prevention. So in terms of Coaching Boys into Men and linkage to post-violence care, I already mentioned about the one-stop center where they are referred to, as well as the dream centers, but also it provides a platform for prevention interventions. For example, even the traditional leaders themselves begin to engage different caregivers as well as the community members using different platforms, for example, radio platforms. It could be the anti-GBV training programs, working with religious leaders. And why this is because it increases the critical mass of support in terms of response to HIV and SGBV. For example, not long ago in Kapirimposhi, for example, through the traditional leaders and awareness and this kind of network, one man who abused 2 children aged 6 and 7 was quickly referred to the one-stop center, and the case accelerated through the fast-track court. As we are speaking right now, he's been sentenced to 39 years imprisonment, which sent a very strong message for those that abuse children, but also for them as adult men in future. These would be the consequences if they do not prevent sexual gender-based violence. Thanks so much.
Chair, should I speak? Yeah, okay, cool. So just to go over the summary of key points before we move to the next part. So key point number 1, an orphan and vulnerable child is a child aged 0 to 17 affected by HIV. Key point number 2, OVC are identified at the facility and community level. The poll question was kind of funny because the third one, or the fourth option was, it's not my job to identify OVC. And we threw that in there because we really want everyone to think about, as members of a community, how we can identify children who are vulnerable, who might be struggling, and who could benefit from services. And I think moving into FY21, we're really going to try to beef up our support of the clinical cascade, the OVC partners support to you as clinicians, and we hope that we can also receive a bit of support for you for our programs. So identifying children at the facility and the community levels. Key point number 3, OVC are served through family-centered case management and, and the provision of and access to health and socioeconomic interventions. So the health piece, making sure that children know their status, that they're linked to HTS, that they're linked to ART, they're supported to stay on ART, that they are referred for immunizations, that they are referred for STIs, that health piece right there, but also the socioeconomic piece, right? So like we said, HIV is not just a medical experience. Is it a social and emotional experience? And we try to look at the children holistically. So is the family able to pay for school fees or for medical expenses without selling assets? Are the children going to school? Are they progressing in school? So the health piece, but also the socioeconomic piece. And then key point number 4. Overseas program support can improve client outcomes. When we look at the child, when we look at the family as a whole, and don't just focus in on their viral suppression, and don't just focus in on black and white kind of clinical indicators, we really can see improvements in our children. So those are the 4 key points that we really want you to take away today. So I think we're going to go through and do these again, Chair.
All right, thank you so much. Sambo, are you able to, are you coming in? Okay, so I think we can pick it up. I think we can do we'll go through the polls one more time. Then you just discuss with us the correct questions. So I'll pick it up from the first one. Okay, so the rest of the network, so we're inviting you to poll now and just give us which one you think is the correct one. Which of the below is considered an OVC? A, adolescent age 17 who is living with HIV. B, a child age 2 who is lost follow-up from PMTC program and no HIV status. An adolescent girl age 15 who is survivor of sexual violence. And D, all of the above. So we have a few seconds for this one. I'll end the poll and then I'll ask Laureen just to help us discuss this particular poll question here. Kindly, Laureen, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So for this poll question, we really wanted to show that it can be an older child, not just a small child, and who's living with HIV. And then B, we're looking at children who had been enrolled in the PMTCT but were lost to follow-up. And the OVC partners can help track lost to follow-up. They can help locate those families who have been lost from the clinics. And that's a very important role that they can play. So think about that when children that are in your care are missing from your appointments. C, and adolescent girls aged 15. We wanted to show that in this example that although she is HIV negative, the OVC services aren't just for children living with HIV. They're also for those who are vulnerable in other ways. So she was a survivor of sexual abuse, and she's also a teen mom. So we do want to enroll her and perhaps her child into our programs.
So the correct answer, Lorraine, is?
D, all of the above.
Okay, so thank you so much, Lorraine, and thank you, Kozia. We'll go to our second poll question, and Lorraine will run us through that quickly.
Quickly, yes, thanks. So I think I spoke to this a moment ago when I was going through the key points, but it's just to reiterate the fact that that OVCs can be identified both in the facility through routine health services, through HIV services, through post-violence care, and also in the community through our CWACs, through our DWACs, through neighbors.
Okay, so I'm going to end the poll, and you will see very interesting vote that has come through.
Okay.
Oh, some people who changed.
Hi, Tombo.
Hi, Kozia.
I came through just when you were out of network, so you could go ahead and pick it up. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So there you go, Lorraine. There's a horrible, horrible person out there.
No, I think they hit the wrong button.
So please tell us what the answer is in summary.
So in summary, OVC can be identified at the both facility and the community level. And we hope that all people see it as their responsibility to identify children who are vulnerable.
Okay, thank you. And it's I think it's good that a lot of people felt that it's both facility and community. So a lot of people actually got it right. Okay. So and our third poll, the following are OVC services: supportive referrals to post-violence care, B, support to access ART and age-appropriate counseling and HIV disclosure support, C, assistance for school re-enrollment for dropouts or teen mothers, all the above. Okay, so we'll just quickly end the poll in the interest of time. And Lorraine, you can give us a summary of what the answer is.
Okay, excellent. So the answer is all of the above. So we do have supportive referrals for health, for school, for psychosocial support, and for economic support as well.
Okay, so the answer was all the above.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and end that. And these are the contacts for all our wonderful presenters that gave us all that information. I must mention that this has opened a new leaf for me as a clinician. This is information I did not know, because actually I know we have Dr. Hachambwa, and he can unmute if he can. We see a lot of these in third line. A lot of OVCs end up in third line, meaning they end up failing their first and second line treatment because of, as the team put it, beyond their medical issues. So in third line, we are mostly dealing with social issues. Third line sounds very complex, but it's mostly soft, what we call the soft skills. Do they have a good care giver at home? Are they taking their drugs? Are they going to school? But at this point, we'll allow the network to send in any questions they may have for Johans, Lorraine, Mwangala, Mr. Singandu. Do we have any comments? Yeta, please prepare to present your case. It's very, very interesting and tied to this. Do we have any comments? I know I
just to agree. Yeah, yes, just to agree with what Dr. Foloshi said, that a number of patients in third line at UTH would be thriving, not just stable, but thriving if they had these kinds of services. So it was a very good presentation and eye-opener to me also.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Achambwa. Sorry, I was muted. Dr. Onoya, do you have a comment before we read? There's a question here for Lorraine and Tim. Dr. Onoya? Okay, so the question to Johans and Lorraine, Mwangala, in Southern Province, who handles these services? And this is from Kazungula Rural Health Center. Bill, I'll let you unmute. Lorraine, do you want to answer that question? Who handles these services in Southern Province?
Sure thing. That's DAP, Development Aid for People to People.
Okay, so that's helpful. Bill, please go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to know, where do we found OVC services in Eastern Province? It would be better if we could have shown us your map in the country, so that we see where you are and how we can locate you easily.
Sure thing, sure thing. So Bill, first of all, thank you for your question and thank you for being interested in our services. So we can circulate a map for OVC services. To specifically speak about Eastern Province, we're really excited because in FY21, we're going to be expanding to Eastern Province to Chipata and Petauke. So watch this space, and hopefully you'll have an OVC partner in your province soon.
Okay, thank you so much, Lorraine. Yeah. So they will be coming to a place near you. At least we'll now know what OVC stands for and what they're about. Dr. Chungu, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Foloshi, and thank you to the entire team for presenting today. Just to say that we, FASTA team, went to Copperbelt to particularly visit an ECR partner, that's Twapia. And it's just amazing how the community piece of OVC services married with the facility services really completes the HIV cascade and really adds that soft touch, as you said. So just to say that we are actually looking forward to the extension of these services to the other provinces as well, because just to reiterate what Lauren said, when you look at the picture comparing OVC supported provinces and sites, definitely the retention is better. So what we now need to figure out working together is just how to have a uniform enrollment criteria that also links in the available services provided at community level, involving even the Ministry of Community and the Social Welfare Office. Thank you very much for this presentation again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chungu. And as you said, that was a very powerful slide where we saw coverage and suppression is much better in facilities that have OVC services. Precious, please go ahead and unmute yourself. Precious? So I think one of the things that was asked, please unmute Precious, was the roadmap for OVC services in Zambia. I don't know if your team is able to share that. I think a lot of people, they are very vague and they don't know much about OVC services. So Lorraine, please send in something, then we can share with the rest of the network. Precious, please go ahead. Precious is that?
Precious Helen.
Precious Helen, please go ahead. Okay, I think maybe we've lost her. At this point, we'll allow Yeta to go ahead with the case. This is a classic connection between the clinical and the topic that has been presented. Dr. Chipasha. You can share the case. Dr. Chipasha, please go ahead and start going through the case.
Hi, Dr. Sombo.
Hello.
Yeah, they did mention that they're struggling with their network. So perhaps maybe if they don't respond anytime, maybe we may have to pick it up.
Okay, so I think Davis.
She must be logged
yes?
on as Infinix something. She said that she used a personal device.
Okay, Dr. Chipasha, please go ahead and read through this case. Okay. What we are going to do before we go into breakout rooms is I'll start going through the case. Lucia, are you with us? Okay, so this is a topic that the team from Yeta sent in immediately. We announced that the session today was about OVC. It was pretty impressive how they picked this. It's a pity that they are unable to join us. Next slide, Chatonda. But I'm sure when they log in, we'll be able to have a meaningful discussion, but I'll try my best based on the information that I have. So we have a female who's 14 years old. She's a grade 5 pupil who is currently unsponsored. She's been on ART for 4 years now, since 2016, and has been reporting for pickup to the facility unescorted because her father believes she's old enough to do this on her own. Her mother has relocated to Namibia with a new husband. MS reported that her stepfather was not comfortable with his stepchildren, and her mother decided to stay in the marriage, hence sent this girl to live with her father, who is actually HIV negative. A counselor was assigned to MS to conduct weekly adherence home visits in November 2019. In the presence of the counselor, the father would frequently tell MS to take her ARVs or she would die, like her twin sister, who was also reactive. She was sent to live with the father's friend in December 2019. ESC sessions were difficult because the child would cry and not talk. On the 19th of March 2020, during a counseling session, she revealed that she was being molested by her current caretaker, and she had reported to her father, who has encouraged her to continue staying where she was, or he would not do anything about it. She stopped taking her drugs due to the molestation. ZCCP, this is where Johans Mtonga, the man who presented, comes from, and the police were notified. The father was against prosecution and requested that the matter be settled out of court with a fine of 70,000 kwacha. Her vitals were that her temperature was 36 degrees, her weight was actually 30 kg, and her BMI was actually 14. She was less than -3 standard deviation, so severely malnourished for age. When they examined her, she was actually very small for age, and they didn't find anything else. Please mute the participant. Next slide. So this is her lab findings. When she started 4 years ago, she was put on a backup 3TC and efavirenz. And you can see in 2017, she was already failing. In April, her viral load was 3,629 copies per mil. Later on, when it was repeated, the viral load was going up. It was more than 13,000 copies per mil. In January 2019, it was 10,857, really essentially not changing. In September, another high viral load. This is more than 6 months old, 6 months into enhanced adherence counseling. 26,000 was the viral load. In December 2019, the viral load was more than 85,000. And as of March 2020, she actually had 624 copies per mil. Of note is that a few months before this low viral load, she was switched to AZT 3TC lopinivir as a second line. Her CD4 lies at 94 cells per mil, her HB is 11.7, her creatinine is 42.4, putting her estimated GFR at 36.9. So there's a bit of renal dysfunction, actually. She was actually genotyped in March. When she was switched, she was also genotyped, and the sample was not stable as it was not kept at recommended room temperature. Next slide, please. So we decided to do a graph of her viral load just to show what was going on with her. In March 2018, already she had been on ART for 2 years. Her viral loads were hitting 90,000. In August, it came down, but really not suppressed. She hovers around 10,000. By the time she's enrolled in ESC, we see that a year later, she's hitting high viral loads again, despite being switched to second line. So far, she's been discharged from the register as she seems to have suppressed. We are not sure how sustained this will be. These were the questions from Yeta. I hope they are able to join. How can we secure this child's welfare in view of the lack of OVC services in Sesheke district? For those that don't know, Sesheke is in Western Province. Number two, how do we best manage children who come for pickup without their guardians? This is a 14-year-old. How can we improve the management of our client in relation to the high viral load and the ART? In short, how can we sustain a viral load less than 1,000? I will have to summarize this myself. Essentially, we have a grade 5 pupil who's 14 years old, who suffers from HIV on ART for the past 4 years. Unfortunately, this child lives with the father who has handed her over to a colleague of his. And this child has shown, even during sessions, some emotional challenges. She's been crying and unable to talk. They are working together with some services, that this is ZCCP and the police, and the father has been charged with a fine of 70,000. Of note is the child has been in ESC, has been having ESC services for more than a year now, with subsequent high viral loads, which have since dipped upon initiation of second-line therapy. The team is wondering how we can secure this child's welfare, who's in grade 5, living with a colleague or her father, and is HIV positive, and has shown already that she's been failing treatment. And how do we manage other children who come for pickup without their guardians? And the other question is, how can we improve the management of this child? She finds herself on second line after really struggling to adhere even to the few tablets she was on. We'll now go into our breakout rooms unless there are any questions, and Yeta has joined. Dr. Chipasha, are you able to take any questions?
Chair, maybe just one addition. I'm not very sure, because the case was not identified into detail, but if this is a case that was referred to us, I'm happy to mention that we worked very closely with the Zambia police to follow up on this particular man who wanted to negotiate a payment of 70,000, and he was threatening people around with witchcraft, those that were going to handle this particular case. And I'm happy to mention that it was taken to the magistrate court where he was convicted. And because the sentence is above 15 years, this has been committed to the High Court for the perpetrator. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Wow, Johans, I'm so happy that we have you, even if Yeta has dropped off, and that's very useful information. So he got a sentence of more than 15 years, and I think they are waiting for the case to go to High Court. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. And except I need to identify this particular case, I'll be able to verify, because I don't have, I have the name, but since this case has just been identified by a number, but Sesheke is where we have a man who was convicted, and the similar expressions from Yeta, that's exactly what happened. So
okay,
right now.
No. Thank you so much, Johans. Is there any contribution from the network? There are usually questions. I hope Johans can. So Sesheke says we are muted, we are not audible, we are not sure why. Sesheke, please leave the meeting and rejoin and pick join via device audio. Are there any questions before we go into our breakout rooms? Okay, we'll take that as the case was very clear. Please, let's proceed to the breakout rooms. We'll only take a few minutes in the breakout rooms. Yes, please.
They have
Dr.
just, as in Sesheke has just left, they'll be rejoining just about now.
Okay, so Bill, please go ahead with your question before we go into our breakout rooms.
Yeah, I would like just to understand why all those series of high viral load and the child was not yet enrolled to yet. What
okay, so
happened?
Why the delay
The child was not seen at a facility. They couldn't access to that child, or
okay. Of course, viral load turnaround times may impact enrollment into ESC if results are delayed. But since Yeta is not here. We will probably save that question. Davis will send it to them and we'll see. So Dr. Bill's question is why the delayed enrollment into enhanced adherence counseling? I must say, even if she was enrolled, it seemed to even worsen the situation at some point, isn't it, Bill? So it depends on what you're doing in that ESC visit. We can go to the breakout rooms now. Yes, they'll only be for 10 minutes because we have run out of time. Okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sombo. Can you get me, Sis Pasha?
Yes, Pastor, yeah, we can hear you. Dr. Zambo here.
So we'll start with question 1. How can we secure this child's welfare in view of lack of OVC services in Sesheke district? Do we have any comment on this one?
Hello?
Yes, please.
I appreciate the fact that OVC services are lacking, but there are organizations within churches that do help. One example is the Girls Brigade of Zambia, which is interdenominational and looks into the welfare of the girl child. So although the condition would be that the girl should be a member of the Girls Brigade, they really do help out in such situations if they are reached out to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Muchaneta. So one of the options is reaching out to the church. They may have some OVC support services such as Girls Brigade. Johans, I thought, how did ZCCP find itself on this case? I'm pretty sure it's the same patient, since they are claiming they don't have this service.
Yes, so ZCCP has just been recently established in Sesheke district as a community partner. And then we've been conducting a number of multidisciplinary trainings in Sesheke as well. In fact, there'll be another one soon, I think starting on the 15th, thereabout. So one of the aspects that we noticed during our entry meeting is that Sesheke has very few partners that provide support in HIV as well. Maybe it's because of the location where they are. But immediately, this girl actually went to the hospital in Sesheke. We are about to set up, in fact, Ministry of Health has already provided space for the one-stop center. So we'll be setting up a one-stop center where multidisciplinary services will be provided. And because of that, they reached out to us for this particular case. And immediately, our legal advisor and the legal team moved in to begin to press this particular case, and then working hand with the victim support unit. So we worked with the national coordinator, VSU, who guided us on who we should have engaged in Sesheke. And thereafter, of course, the case was followed up until reaching the court. But in terms of services and lack of the services that are there, which we are not able to provide, we reached out to the Director Community Services here in Lusaka, because they have the social welfare officers who, for various reasons and the challenges that they are facing, they couldn't take in this girl almost immediately. And as at last week, we were waiting for a feedback. The goodness is that in terms of the protection, this particular man is out of reach for this particular girl. At least for now, the girl is safe. Now the question is, how do we sustain her livelihood and support? So I think this we should be able to provide, we can provide feedback on this particular case once we get some feedback from the Director Social Services here in Lusaka.
Thank you so much, Johans. I must say we are very lucky to have you in this room. I feel like you already sorted out question 1 So I think maybe we can ask somebody else, maybe Sons of Thunder, how do we best manage children who come for pickup without their guardians? How do you manage children who come for pickup with their guardians? How do you handle these situations at Kazungula, Sons of Thunder? Okay, maybe we've, are you unmuting them? Okay, I think maybe Dr. Mwate, do you want to help us with this? I know you cover Kafue districts. How should we be handling children who come for pickup without guardians? Is there any MOH guidance or policy? Dr. Mwate.
Hi, Sambo.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think we need to, one, we know we cannot turn them back, but maybe probably we just give them a small amount of drugs, maybe for a week or two, and encourage them to come back with their guardians.
Okay, but for this situation where the father is very reluctant,
yeah.
What else would you propose?
We may try to identify community structures from within where they're coming from and try to see if maybe community-based volunteer around the area that they come from can assist them with that, especially also providing some form of feedback with regards to the internal structures from where this particular child is coming from. So I would recommend that we probably focus or we try to use these particular community-based volunteers that come from within the areas.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, actually. I hadn't thought about that. So community structures maybe would have helped. And basically, maybe that's what was happening on this child. Maybe everybody focused on the facility structures and didn't think that, oh, maybe this child is better off managed in the community. I'm not sure. Do we have anyone with more to add to this before I give number 3? I know we are joined by Dr. Chamba, so he will advise us on number 3. We only have a few minutes before we break. Musonda Kamfwa, do you have any comment on how we can best manage children who come for pickup without their guardians?
Okay, so basically, like my colleague had mentioned, even here in Eastern Province, where we have such cases or similar cases, we usually attach these children to the community based volunteers who tend to see over these children more like their secondary parent to them. So whenever anything is needed, usually these are the people that tend to go and take and pick these children. So that is one of the best ways that we can attend to this. I remember even in Western Province, when I worked there, we used to use similar approaches. So what my colleague had mentioned is that. Thank you.
Hi, Lorraine. Do you have anything to say about number 2 before I hand over number 3 to Dr. Hachambwa?
No, I think the colleagues answered it well. Yeah, no.
Okay, so this is what needs to be done for such clients. So how, aside of course telling them to come with the guardian, but if this is impossible, like in the case of the child, you may want to engage the community. So Dr. Achambwa, this is your forte. These are the patients we send to you in third line after all the drama. And we say, how can we improve the management of our client in relation to high viral load suppression and ART? Of note is that he seems to have suppressed on AZT3TC lopinivir, but looking at her situation, I worry it will not be sustained. So how can we make it better for her?
Hi, is that my question, Dr. Foloshi?
Yes, yes. How can
Sorry,
we improve her?
Yeah, my internet is kind of unstable, so yeah, I think for this situation was sorting out the social issues.
Okay.
I think for now, since it looks like it's suppressed now, I think I would continue just regular viral load monitoring, and then if it goes back up again, do a genotype and see what happens. I think the main problem right from the beginning is social circumstances, the social determinants of health, I think are the things that we've been ignoring for most of these children. And I think this is one area where, in addition to the medical aspects of it, dealing with the social determinants, I think would make a big difference.
Thank you so much, Dr. Achambwa. Do you have an opinion about using Tafed in this girl? Her creating clearance is at 36. What is your opinion? She's currently on AZT3TC lopinivir.
Yeah, if she's suppressed, I would probably wait and see if she remains suppressed so that, yeah, I would change if we're having issues and then want to use different regimens. I didn't get the entire history of the previous regimens, so that's why
yeah. Okay.
Hesitant on recommending the next regimen. Yeah.
Okay. So she was on a backup 3TC efavirenz, then went to AZT3TC lopinivir, ritonivir. It's a pity that they didn't get a genotype on, the genotype sort of was not stored properly, because I'm sure that genotype would have helped, and maybe Tafed would have been a better option because it's one tablet and less pills and everything. But now I acknowledge it's difficult, but maybe when the viral load goes up again, we can see what that tells us. Okay.
Exactly. Could you have a genotype at that point because of the history of abacavir? So if she remains suppressed, I would keep her on this instead of switching blindly in case there's a K65R. Though with abacavir, we expect more of the L74V, so the Tafed could still work, but you'd probably want to make sure that she doesn't have any mutations that compromise a regimen containing Tafed. And when she grows up, obviously, yeah, there'll probably be other options later on. Yeah.
Okay. So would we consider something like AZT3TC with DTG for her?
Yes, that's what, yeah. Tying it together with dealing with the social circumstances.
Yeah.
Because it will take a while for her to really think using a regimen that contains DTG is better because of the fact that she will suppress, even though her adherence may not be 100% on that regimen.
Yes, I totally agree, even pill burden. Do we have any other opinion in terms of helping her manage our client in terms of suppression and ART? Do we have any other suggestions? We have suggested AZT3TC DTG would definitely work. Tafed would have been ideal if we had a genotype, but unfortunately that genotype was unable to be processed. Do we have anything else? So I think we need to break back to we are going to go back to our main session. Thank you so much. And we'll hear what other people think of our suggestions. Thank you so much. go ahead with your recommendation.
You guys are already back.
It's only 10 minutes. We have run out of time because of the nature of the presentation. But I can see you are sitting with the very able Dr. Mwansamwale. So please hit the road.
Okay, so you would like to hear what we discussed. So I think we had a few comments coming in, and most people were thinking that maybe we could, first of all, explore the possibilities of relatives. Are there any other relatives that could actually stay with this child? And that, if that has failed, then we could engage some Catholic places or churches that actually collaborate and work well with vulnerable children, and that would provide the housing. Because this child doesn't seem to be in a safe environment, has suffered a lot of rejection from every angle, and might need the support. And so we actually had an input from one of our, Dr. Venevivi, a psychiatrist. He said that Sesheke may actually connect with Livingstone, where there's a psychiatrist there. And then also there is some mission, there is a Catholic church there which collaborates with the hospital in terms of such support for vulnerable children. And so we further discussed that the ART management, we might want to simplify it to a single dose. So probably consider Tafed as an option. Of course, looking at the EGFR, which is a bit low, it's on the lower side, but I think she would tolerate it better. If we give Tafed, it will simplify our dosage and it will make her better. I think one aspect that we also need to discuss was the nutritional aspect. She needs to be well counseled when it comes to nutrition and provided for, because I don't think there's any, she actually has proper support in terms of nutrition where she stays. So these are some of the things that came up in our group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kozia. Some very, very informative information there. I think even the aspect of nutrition has been dealt with. We'll just add on to what you said. For now, I don't know if we had anyone in breakout room 3. Dr. Kandio, Dr. Nakulira, is she with us?
Hi, Sombo.
Hi. Any recommendations from your room?
Well, unfortunately, we got, added back to the main session before we could conclude our discussion. I think there was a bit of delay in allocating us to breakout room 3.
Okay.
But what we had discussed was the first question on how we can secure this child's welfare in view of lack of obvious services in Sesheke. And as the team was discussing, what we discussed was that in the absence of an obvious partner, the government, that is both Ministry of Social Welfare and the Ministry of Health, can work together to actually, look up and try to offer services, because they can still offer services that can cater for the needs of the vulnerable children, even though they may not have an obvious partner in Sesheke. So we couldn't proceed to discussing the other questions.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Kandio. Apologies for that. So I think that's some very useful points from Dr. Kandio's room. And Sesheke has just said that there are no relatives. Actually, they've tried. I feel comforted because our team didn't discuss relatives, but I'll just go on and add to what Dr. Kandio and Dr. Kozia has said. Sesheke, are you with us? Sesheke, Dr. Chipasha and team? Okay, unfortunately, they are still struggling. So, but they acknowledge and they are very grateful for the recommendation of going to the church. They say there's actually a Catholic church just opposite to where the hospital is, and they had never thought of approaching them for help. But the other thing that has been mentioned from our group was other churches also do offer services for OVC. An example that was given was the Girls Brigade from one of the churches. I believe this is UCZ. But we in our room had the privilege of having a ZCCP representative. So the good news is that for Sesheke, ZCCP is just setting up OVC services, and they're actually informed about this case, and they are your community partner. So I'm sure they will be coming to your aid with these cases. And they are working with Ministry of Health to set up a one-stop center in Sesheke. They have a legal advisor. They've also informed the Director of Community and Social Services, and they've put this child in a safe environment. But for the child to be sustained, for this safety to be sustained, they are waiting for feedback from the community and social services. I think one thing that has come out clearly is that you need a multidisciplinary and multi-sectoral intervention from this child. And the other issue that was looked at is nutrition. We need to engage and help this child. As for the treatment, there are two schools of thought. While the child would have benefited from Tafed, which is a one tablet, and looking at the creatinine clearance, the only problem is she's had this prolonged exposure to abacavir. And we know that abacavir and tenofovir, some of the mutations you get from there, there's cross reactivity. So TAF may be compromised. We are not sure. It's a possibility. It's something we are willing to explore. For now, we are recommending the child goes on AZT3TC with dolutegravir. And if she ever gets a high viral load, we will genotype that and see if maybe Tafed can be considered. Sesheke team, do you have any comments about those recommendations from Dr. Kozia, Dr. Kandiwa? And
Dr. Foloshi, there's one group that hasn't fed back, group room 2, Chungu here.
Room 2, oh, so Dr. Kandiwa's room. Okay, please, Dr. Chungu, please add on.
So in addition to what you've said, there was also a suggestion from that room that we involve the neighborhood health committees, that someone from the neighborhood health committee would be able to maybe assign certain people to provide dots to this adolescent, and also exploring the possibility of a safe house. Of course, that would need also looking at what partners are available within the district. And then the other recommendation was also that this adolescent would benefit from being affiliated to an adolescent-friendly space, because then the peers and the mentors available would also help to offer counseling and additional services that would aid this child in order to achieve suppression, and also support the nutritional support as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chungu. Apologies for leaving out from 2. We thought you were in the same room with Dr. Kandio. So this is good. So I think the recommendation, in addition, is to work with the neighborhood health committee to see if this child can be given dots so that she does not have to travel all the way to the facility, because there's a lot going on with this child. And there should be possibility of a safe house where she can be kept, and that we should link her to the adolescent-friendly services so that she's seen in an adolescent-friendly space. It's very clear there's a lot of work that needs to be done with this child, but I hope Sesheke team, are you with us? We've taken note, and the good news is that there are partners available for you. Sesheke, Dr. Chibbabbuka.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sombo.
Oh, wow. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining.
We're so sorry we've been having technical problems here, but we have closely followed the discussion. Thankfully, we were able to hear what was being discussed, and we're very grateful. I think I also heard Dr. Bill's concern regarding how long it took to enroll the child in ESC. Early last year, we didn't have a clear flow of patients. A system that was able to identify patients with high viral loads from triage, to be able to pick up such cases as soon as their vitals are being obtained. So yes, unfortunately, she's one of the patients who suffered the wrath of such a poor system in place at the facility. But we have since worked on that, and just from triage setup itself, the facility is able to tell who has a high viral load. Index testing services are offered, and enhanced adherence counseling is also done for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chibbabbuka. You've also actually taught us something about triaging patients early with high viral load. That's how this child was missed for a long time. despite having these high viral loads. I hope you heard what Dr. Chungu said about, let's see if we can work with DOTS and get the child into a safe house, and the creation of adolescent-friendly spaces. And I also hope you took note of what Dr. Kozia said and what Dr. Kandio said. So for now, we are recommending AZT3TC with DTG, but once we get a high viral load, we are going to genotype that, and TAFED will definitely still be considered. We may also consider it if she still struggles with AZT3TC dolutegravir. What do you think of that, Dr. Chipasha?
Yes, I think I'm very appreciative of the contributions that have been made. I just hope by the time, not that I'm wishing she has a high viral load, but if at all it happens, we'll be able to transport the sample as recommended. That has been the biggest challenge. She's not the only client whose feedback we've obtained as such. To say the lab was unable to process the genotype due to instability of the sample. So we hope we'll be able to transport a stable sample when the time comes.
Thank you so much. I think that's one issue we need to look at with our labs teams, because at this point, that's a golden sample. Dr. Chipasha, we will urge that you work with Dr. Chungu on this case, especially when it comes to our ART. Dr. Kozia.
Yeah, just a quick comment that the correctional service has made, that they can consider taking the child for assessment by the MCDSS, so that if meets the criteria, the child can actually be put in a safe house. I think that could be one of the options that they can pick up.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Chipasha. We will continue to work with you, Dr. Kozia, Dr. Chungu, on this case even after the session. There's a lot of help that's been offered, and also with Johans. But above all, Dr. Chipasha, we want to thank you for submitting a case that was perfect for the didactic. We have all learned so much, and we hope that we can get this child where we need that to be. And at this, we are going to wind up today's session, and we'll see you next week at 2:30 with a TB session. Thank you all that joined us. And thank you all for sending in cases. Please, if you can send them before Thursday, that's the ideal time. Thank you, and it's a wrap.